Hello. All right, something different today. I'll start with a quote. Their aim is to completely destroy, to break down to its very cornerstone the entire religious and civic order that Christianity has erected. Who do you think said that? That was a pope, Pope Leo XIII in 1884. Who was he talking about? He was talking about secret societies and one specific one. But the church had been, even before that, from the 18th century, had been condemning certain secret societies that had come to the fore. Of course, the secret societies, they go all the way to Gnosis, really, and that is pre-Christ, okay, from the East, the ones who know, the special ones, the superior ones, and so on. But they have sort of, although many, they have come together, they have morphed, and you have many. So by the 18th century, the church actually realized that they actually defined it like this, that they were talking in this case about Freemasonry, and they said a nucleus from which all secret sects derive and to which all secret sects return. In other words, we'll have to put it in general terms. Okay, so it condemned not this one or that one, but all of them as part of one whole thing. Now, I'm going to talk about these secret societies, or one particular secret society perhaps, but this is going to take me a little bit longer than one video because I don't want to go on for 3 hours. So perhaps this is what I will do this week. I don't know how long, but certainly 3. I think I will need to go into it. Cannot go into it in detail, but at least to give a general idea of what it is. Of course, they are. The one thing is that they have all been against the church in one way or another. From the Gnostics in the once Christianity made its force felt. In the first century, they were very much openly fighting Christianity. In the second century, they had become Christian themselves, in the sense that they would pretend to be Christians and then create havoc within the Christian community. This is as from the 2nd century or so. Okay, so I will go into greater detail there, because they would write new gospels, or they would give a different interpretation to the words of Jesus, and so on. What with the with the Roman emperors killing Christians all over the place, and then these secret societies fighting it from within. So from outside and from the inside, the church had her hands full, for sure. Okay, so let me begin at the beginning. Secret society, okay. The church calls it a sect. And is a sect or a society that has schemed against the church, but not only against the church. It has developed, as it were, and it, for a long time, it has worked against the nation, the idea of a nation state. And when I say the church here, I mean the Catholic Church, because it's the one which has been actually fighting this for the longest time. But it is not the only one who has condemned Freemasonry, for example. The Orthodox Church did that in 1933. And even some Protestant denominations, actually, the Methodists, the Presbyterians, even the Anglican Church, which you're going to perhaps think that that is quite extraordinary. But it was done with a little bit of secrecy, as it were. But in 1987, the Synod of the Anglican Bishops published a document entitled, in this particular case, they were talking about Freemasonry and Christianity. And this is something that it would take us a long time to discuss what the repercussions of that were. But the condemnation there was clear, and they speak there of Freemasonry, of the secret word, above all, as blasphemous and seriously contrary to Christianity. So they did condemn it in this document, at least officially. From that point on, in 1987, there were many reactions from Anglican bishops who were themselves Freemasons, and they left the society. But then afterwards, there was a sort of a thick veil drawn, and not much said about this. You know that the Catholic Church also has been, I'll get to this in greater detail, has been greatly infiltrated too, yes, as we see now, as we have seen for a few decades, but this has been going on since the 18th century. That is why I started with that quote from Leo XIII, but it goes back. Okay, the reason why I said that I was quite surprised about the Anglican Church is that there has been a sort of I don't know whether it is a union or an understanding or whatever it is, between, in this case, Freemasonry and the royal house. Although some members have refused to have much to do with it, or perhaps not at all. And they were not, they decided they didn't want to participate. We're talking about lodges, yes, in England. And in fact, now I believe that since 1967, it is the Duke of Kent who is at the forefront, the cousin of Queen Elizabeth. This is because the late Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, he's passed away, as we all know, rest in peace. He refused to assume the leadership. Okay, some historians and those who follow these things interpret this to mean that his refusal was due to the fact that from his very early years he had been brought up as a Greek Orthodox, so a Christian, and the Greek Church has actively condemned the society, as I said, in 1933. But anyway, we don't know whether it was for this reason or any other reason. He nevertheless, he did do the initiation into Freemasonry, but he didn't go beyond the first grade. Don't grade 1, as it were, okay? And this he only did because apparently his father-in-law, King George, really insisted on it, and he wouldn't give up. But since then, as far as it is known, he had not very much participation. Certainly didn't want to be its head. Now, in this video, what I'm going to do is just to give you a very general overview, okay? Because people know about, in this particular case, the Freemasons as, you know, the handshake and the, you know, the pyramid and so on. But just very generally, I'll get more into it, okay, in the next ones. Now, there are very many visible people who belong to the society as commentators and so on, TV and so on. They always say that when they're asked, if they're asked, rarely, you know, about the society, they always point out that they are not a secret society. They describe themselves, they said, not secret, but discreet. Not secret, but discreet. Well, I suppose that whoever thought of that had a little bit of a little bit of a laugh, really, because to be discreet is a good thing. That we all should do it, but we don't have to join any society to do so. I think it works better actually in the Latin languages. You know, supplying words in English. Secret, discreet do not rhyme. In the other languages they do. So someone was very clever to come up with that turn of phrase. So because they do know that yes, they are secret, and their secret main goal is maintain. Although there have been quite a lot of writings about it, and by historians, and quite a lot of documents coming out also. But however discreet they might be, they cannot really say that they are transparent or an open organization, because it is not. Okay, so perhaps it is better to just say discreet. And what is there to be discreet about anyway? Because, for example, a Christian is obliged to, this is what we're supposed to do, we don't do it, but in any case, a Christian is supposed to spread the gospel and be out there. You know, you don't need to be discreet about it. You need to carry the message as it is. There is no reason to beat around the bush, as it were. If you are following what you know is true, and there is absolutely nothing to hide or to be hidden about that in your intentions or in your goals. As the pontifical condemnations of the 18th century say, honesty seeks the light. They were attacking it, condemning it. So if what you believe about your objectives for the nation, of its citizens, religion, whatever, just say it straight. No, not need to. There is no need to be so terribly discreet about it. Anyway, let's start. So, goals, purposes, objectives. Okay. The goals and the objectives have not changed much, although the different societies have taken over from others and merged and so on. But its main aim throughout history has not changed. There are some radical obediences, they're called. Some are more radical than others. There is a great deal of difference, for example, between regular Freemasonry and irregular Freemasonry. That is the main great division, if you will. But in the Catholic Church condemnation throughout the centuries, all of them are included. Well, to summarize goals, objectives, and so on. In the language, let me see that I find some quotes here. Yes, I was looking for more quotes here, just to give you an idea of how, it encompasses throughout the centuries different societies and so on. Let me give you, for example, 3 of the, should I say, mottos? So no, slogans. No, it's not a slogan. It's a sentences that they use. For example, in Latin, yeah. One is ordo ab cao. Ordo ab cao. In other words, order will come from chaos. What does that mean? It does not mean that they're going to bring order to the existing chaos now. It means rather that a previous chaos must be provoked in order to constitute a new society in which not even a root of what was before Christianity, a society built on Christianity's teachings, not a single root remains. Another one, for example, solve et coagula. This comes from the alchemists, perhaps. In other words, dissolve and coagulate. Okay, a substance must be broken down before it can be built up into something new. You have to dissolve what already exists. Finally, for example, they give a different interpretation to the acronym INRI, INRI. Yes, the sign that at the cross, Jesus' death, they put up Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. It was written in 3 languages, Greek, Latin, and Hebrew. the Jews came over and complained. Don't say king of the Jews, say that he said that he was the king of the Jews. And Rome answered, what is written, written is, remains. But here we begin to see hatred, and we begin to see from the Roman side a certain they despised, I think, the people who brought forward the charge. That's something else. But that INRI, the interpretation that they give is look at here. Igni is in Latin again. Igni natura renovatur integra. Igni natura renovatur integra. Igni is fire, the fire that will destroy nature will renovate all. The fire that will destroy nature will renovate everything. Or nature is renewed by fire. Okay, so let me go back. Now, if they want to reinvent society, how are they going to do this? Well, obviously, you have to start with education at schools. I have quite a few videos from a few months ago talking about the destruction of the family, which we know by now that is one of the main goals in order to be able to change, to manage human beings. You destroy society, but it's education also. And to sometimes to an extreme extent. I'm not going to talk about what is happening now, but I'm going to talk about what I want to mention. For example, during the French Revolution era, they would take all religious from schools, even if there were no schools left, even if schools couldn't open. They would rather not have schools than continue to have Christian schools. Okay, it happened the same in Spain actually during the Second Republic in the 1930s, before the Civil War. They took all religious out of the schools, and that was quite late, and they knew that they wouldn't be able to get enough teachers or to rebuild the whole educational system before the next term, the next education year, but they didn't care. That was beside the point. They had to be. So education is certainly one area in which they work. Okay, and if you, as in these cases that I mentioned, if you have to get rid of all, and if there is a vacuum there, they don't care. The main thing is that they're not exposed to these Christian principles. Okay, that's not obviously the only one. You're already guessing. You have to join the dots yourself here. But in politics, I have a little mosquito here. In politics also, okay, in many other ways, in social engineering, anti-Christian, or that is pushed through political legislation, especially when they have direct access to power or indirect access by influencing it. And you can see the marks of this transformation, what has been happening in society now. I think this is one of the most radical movements, transformations that societies have seen for a long time, for centuries perhaps. I don't know whether you are familiar with something that the last Pope Benedict XVI said, and he said it, I think he was no longer Pope, I think he said it about 2 years before he died. And he referred to, well, remember John Paul II used to talk about this culture of death. I think he was perhaps the first one who used it in those terms. How, Benedict XVI Ratzinger talked about the creed of the Antichrist. Okay, when we talk about the Antichrist, we're always getting into these morbid things because it's used in so many ways by so many different people in so many different contexts. I don't know whether it means anything anymore. But think of well, let's leave it like that, because I was going to say evil doesn't help, and malevolence doesn't cover it, because many will not be malevolent, perhaps malignity, perhaps, in any case, that there is that which promotes death or destruction is barren. It doesn't have the juices itself to recreate itself. It's a parasite that feeds off, milks off, from the blood of something else, of something that it is alive. By itself it dies, so you have to have it always joined to something that is alive. I don't know how you call that, but in any case, he said the creed of the Antichrist. Because he says there has been a number of very clear anti-Christian dogmas. And if you do not go along with it, he pointed out that you're excluded, okay, from the basic common social consensus. And they are anti-Christian now, and no longer in a subtle way. I think subtlety, as we see in politics, has been left aside, and is now openly against anything Christian, against the law of God too. He gave 3 examples of this, and he said one, so this has been going on for a while. He said one was abortion, the other one to him was homosexual marriage, and the other one was the production of human beings in laboratories. He went on to explain. But in short, everything that attacks, he said, the human being in its dignity, what attacks life in its dignity and the family in its dignity, the dignity of, keep this in mind, the dignity of a man, that which attacks, in other words, Antichrist, evil, whatever it is, call it what you will, but that which attacks, let's say, the dignity of a man. You can think of examples. That which attacks the dignity of womanhood. I saw, I think it was last year, in a video in America, when they were talking about when the Supreme Court was had changed that the Roe v. Wade was now going to be decided at the state level, not at the federal level. And there were demonstrations, and there was one woman there, flat on the ground, laughing, pretending to have an abortion, and laughing about it and enjoying it. That degree of degeneracy, attacking womanhood in its dignity of giving life. Yeah. So he mentioned these three things that form part of this creed. And this creed is now, you could say, firmly established. President Macron is actually the recent introduction of President Macron of abortion into the Constitution of France. So they have wanted to shield this, what they call it, right? Shield it in such a way that they introduced it in the Constitution. And the European Union is obviously going that way too. So, all right. So what is finally achieved with all this? Okay, so this another word that I would have would be abhorrent. But anything that goes against dignity, against mankind, certainly against God. And what is finally achieved ultimately with all this? Well, an absolutely manageable society. The establishment of a global dominion, because this the world governance thing, the project to control the planet from one single government or a set of different governments, very small, few connected to each other, that would control the world, of control societies which are very different from one another, different cultures and so on, under one sole dominion. To do that, you obviously need, that requires to disarm the human person, the human being. And they know that a nucleus of resistance, as I said, that doesn't fail is actually the family. You can deal with one individual one at a time, but not when he has that cushion there of the family. But I would still say that the main primary objective to defeat is certainly the church. Throughout centuries, why the Catholic Church? Because it is probably one of the reasons. There are many reasons, I think, but one of them is that it's the most structured and therefore the most resistant. It is also the one that saw the danger coming all the way since the 18th century. The church had fought heresies all throughout, yeah. But this was something new, what started perhaps with the Enlightenment and so on, this movement. Perhaps you can take it back to the Reformation when the church was broken up into smithereens, as it were. But this had been done before too. So, but the church had dealt with heresies, but it was always, I say, heresy, something from outside, something that was, in conflict with doctrine. This, the church sense was something new, something different. And actually, the first condemnation of it was in 1738, that the church condemned Freemasonry. Just quite quick, because officially, it had been born, it had started in 1717, I believe, in England. Just a few years before, really. And another Pope, Clement the 12th, let me see if I can find, it's the one who started to talk about this new global government that they talk about. The destruction of the Christian order, condemning it because the destruction, they would be going against the Catholic Church because the destruction of the Christian order, he says, cannot coexist with the Catholic Church. That is why the infiltration inside the church itself began, which is now totally, up to the very top. You may disagree with that. But in other words, in the 60s, the Vatican II, that was not the beginning of major changes. No, that was the display of, we have finally done it. And now there is a cherry on the cake. But it doesn't matter, because it will not be destroyed. That's another thing. But in any case, okay, so so the way they started infiltrating, it was, as the Gnostics in the 2nd century, it was in order to distort its teachings to the extent that at the moment is practically not even recognizable. As I said, even in the 18th century, they were talking about this infiltration, and then so much more in the 20th and this century, 21st, even more. But in the middle of the 20th century, certainly there is a very strong, powerful infiltration, yes, the result of which we are seeing now, we're seeing today. We have been seeing it for a few decades. But the point remains that it is the church which is one of the major objectives to defeat. Now, there is also a clear project within the society which actually inherited from a brotherhood prior to Freemasonry, one that did not expand as much, which was the Brotherhood of the Rosicrucians, which is known for having proposed 3 manifestos for humanity. This is going back to the 17th century, where they already maintained from the first manifesto that we had to leave the world as Adam had found it. And what does that mean? Without any vestiges of Christianity at all. since perhaps before the second video on this, I'm going to talk, as an aside, I'm going to talk about the grades, because this is something that people are interested in, I think, the different grades. So the Masonic gradation. There is as I said, there are many people writing about this, okay, and many who have left. There is, I don't, when I read what they write, those who have left, as this Frenchman called Vad Gallardo, he's got a Spanish surname, but he's French. I take it with a pinch of salt, because I don't know the reasons why they left. I don't know that they were expelled. I don't know whether they are what we normally call in politics, controlled opposition. I don't know. Okay, so you're telling me this, fine. I don't say they are absolutely right, correct. They're telling the truth. They could be exaggerating. I don't know. But in any case, as an example, this particular one, he left the secret society, and he wrote a book. He actually got to grade 18. Okay, according to societies, you can, well, can go as far as grade 33, and then in other obediences there are even more, sometimes even triple. Okay, but I'll come to that. But okay, so he wrote a book saying that he had been amazing and he had left it, and it's a very popular book in France, certainly, and I know in Spain too. And he says that the title of the book is rather polemic, probably, because he says I had that's the title. I had been worshipping Lucifer and I didn't know it. That's the title. Okay, what has Lucifer got to do with anything here? Well, this is part of other traditions. You remember that the church says that he attracts all kind of other things. He was asked, this guy, Monsieur Gallardo, he was asked in an interview when he had become aware of that, that he had been worshipping Lucifer, which sounds terribly, terribly strange. To most. And he said in the first, he got to 18 in the first grade. But you see, he was also in the human rights section, in which there is it's a Masonic obedience, and one of the most perhaps expressly Luciferians. There is a Luciferian tradition. The point is, what does it mean? What is it? And so on. Are we getting now into this, strange things? But there is a Luciferian. What we have to know is what Luciferian really means and what happens, yeah? And this obedience in which he was part of, is one of the most expressly Luciferians. And he explained that he was a little bit shocked and asked his master, because there is one master in every lodge, and he asked specifically about why such and such was being done. And the answer was, first of all, not to be alarmed. It was only done once a year and only in the first grade. But besides, the most important thing, the most important thing was that it was purely symbolic. Okay, so symbolism and ritual is important in religion too. This was symbolic. The symbolism of exalting the figure of Lucifer, it was explained for them. They present it as an exaltation of liberty. Lucifer, freedom, liberty. This is sort of an image of Prometheus rebelling against Zeus. Right. Anyway, and you see what they are taught is that Lucifer actually is the one who brings the light. He is the bearer of light for them. The one who with his light illumines, enlightens consciences, enlightens man so that he can follow the path that leads him to being a superior being. It's a very interesting book. Anyway, he actually went on until as long as the 18th, but he finally left it. Okay, about grades. Not all lodges, not all obediences have the same rights. Okay, the important thing is which rite they follow to see how they are progressing. There are three basic ones. There has to be at least three, also called the blue. That is widespread in the lodges of Central and South America, for example, since independence. In the 19th centuries especially, most of the independent leaders cajoled and helped by foreigners in the most part. Simon Bolivar was a Freemason, many of them, yeah. Okay, so in this particular obedience, okay, it is called the Lautaro. I wonder what they have in Argentina. Anyway, they have very strong Masonic imprint here. So they have 3 degrees of initiation. They're called the blues. Okay, and they are basic and they cannot be ignored. Everyone has to do it. At the end, you'll be master of, master if you got to the 3rd grade. Now, there are, of course, Masonic rites that take you up to the 33rd grade. For example, the ancient and accepted Scottish rite, where the Mason will, the Freemason will gradually be getting to knowing where he has entered, what he now is part of. And in the highest grades, he will encounter for sure this Luciferian reality very clearly. In the ancient and accepted Scottish rite, from the 29th grade onwards, it would be very difficult to be deceived. And as from the 30th, it is impossible not to know. There are differences, for example, in the obedience Illuminati. The Luciferian aspect is much more present there. There are other rites that have more than 33, as I said before, 33 grades. Some might have triple that number. And those are the grades called sacerdotal, that is priestly. For example, in the Memphis rite, these grades are secret. They are only for those very advanced in the Masonic knowledge. Of course, through the rites, they will be getting symbols and knowledge. One could argue perhaps knowledge somewhat deceptive, because at the end of the day, the most important thing to keep in mind is that what this secret society teaches is above all Gnosticism, the practice of Gnosis, which has been actually fighting Christianity, as I said, since the 1st century. And in the second, when they started infiltrating the church, they began sort of adulterating the Gospels, directly inventing some new ones, playing with different versions, and so on. So I'm going to, I had done a video on the Gnostics, on Gnosticism. I'm going to see if I can find it somewhere. But I'm going to leave it here today and then move on, because I think you will have to, just get it all together yourself. I'm just going to give you bits and pieces of information. You put it together if you wish. All right, I will continue with this topic tomorrow. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.